Hey everyone, and welcome back. I'm Joey, and today we're going to be doing a GameCube showcase on the Logitech G Cloud. I'm going to go into all of the settings that you need, the two different emulators that you're going to need, as some games don't work on one and need the other, and we'll get into everything that you would need to get everything set up for this device. So without waiting any further, let's go right into the settings. First things first, we want to change it from handheld mode to tablet mode on the G Cloud. So jump into the settings, and if you're already in tablet mode, you don't need to do this, but just jump into settings and device information and switch to tablet mode. That'll give us the native Android operating system. And then from there, open up your browser, and you can jump into the link in the description, and then you want to just follow me on screen. The emulator that we want is Dolphin MMJR 11505, and the APK version. You don't need the zip. So you can see here what the file name is, and you just want to grab it off of this link that I'm going to include in the description. Download everything to your device. You might get a pop-up for unknown sources, and just allow that. Not a big deal. And then just install. Now this is Dolphin MMJR, and it's a fork of the official Dolphin version, so we're going to use this in some scenarios. So if we boot it up, it needs file access, so just allow it. And then you can click OK to check for updates at start, even though there's no updates. Now we want to click the plus sign at the top, and this is where you're going to search for your ROMs that you have stored on your internal card or your SD card. I have mine on my SD card in a GameCube folder. If you don't have ROMs at this point, there is two ways you can do it. Number one, you can use Google. Or number two, you can look at the video I released about a week or so ago that's called Retro Game ROMs and basically where to find them. So that might help you out, and then you can come back here. For everybody else, let's continue, and we want to map the GameCube controls to the Logitech. So pop into GameCube input, and now you just map the buttons. So if you want to look at a GameCube controller just to see where you might want it to be for your buttons, or if you can follow my fingers, you can do that as well. I bind Z to R2. For the triggers, I accidentally map it to L1 and R1, but you should use L2 and R2. It's something I always get confused about, so don't follow me on that one. When you're all done, click the save icon in the top right, and it'll bring you back. Now we want to change some settings. So jump into General, and you want to scroll down, and you want to change the setting that says Audio Stretching. We want to enable that. Save it, and then head back in, and now we want to go into Graphics Settings, and we want to change OpenGL to Vulkan. And then you want to change asynchronous mode to be on, first shader compilation, and compile shaders before starting. Now we want to jump into hacks, and you want to enable defer EFB cache, as well as immediately present XFB. Okay, boot into any game, and you want to swipe down from the top, toggle controls, and then click toggle all. That'll get rid of the on-screen buttons so you don't have them there. Another thing you want to change is if you swipe down from the top to get into the Android settings menu, scroll all the way down to System, and we want to go to Gestures, and then you want to turn from gesture navigation to 3-button navigation. Now you can keep gesture navigation on if you're familiar with how to do it. I just like having the 3 buttons on the right there to go back as well as go home and kind of get a recents button section as well. Now I mentioned 2 emulators. The next one we want to grab is Dolphin Emulator. So you can go to dolphin-mu.org or Google Dolphin Emulator. And when you're on their website, we want to go to the download section at the top. And then scroll down and you want the development version, not the beta version. So head to development versions and the last one there, or whatever the most recent one is for Android. Click download and download anyway. And now we want to open the APK to install it. And then let's open it and we'll configure this emulator as well. Now again, first thing we want to do is add our games. So head to your internal or SD card and find your folder for GameCube games. I'm using PAL ROMs for this entire video, so just keep that in mind when you see a 50 frame rate or 50 Hertz at the top left or right when we're doing frame rate. Now head to the settings and we want to go to config as well as general, and we want to enable save states. Next, go back out and you want to head to graphics settings and go to video backend and change that to Vulkan. Shader compilation mode, we want to go to skip drawing again and then compile shaders before starting. Head to enhancements and just double check the internal resolution is still 1x, which is what we want. The rest of the settings here can be left as default. Now we want to head to hacks and we want to turn on skip EFB access, as well as immediately present XFB, and we want VBI skip on. Back out again and I'm going to show FPS. Back to the main menu and you want to go to GameCube input and then the little settings icon on the right. And this is where we're going to map GameCube again. So just go through and you can use the same controls that you did for the other emulator. Just double check that you're getting the right access or button for each control. You can see there I had to fix it because it was thinking it was something it wasn't. The right analog stick, you can see there I had to fix that as well, so just double check. And remember, triggers, I put L1 and R1, you want to use L2 and R2. Back right out to the main menu and to the main screen. And like before, we're going to jump into a game. Just pick any game, we want to get rid of the on-screen controls. Scroll down and click back, or if you know the gesture to get back, then do that. And now you want to click toggle controls and toggle all. Now let's get into the actual game showcase, and we're going to start off with Animal Crossing. Now, like I said, we're going to be using PAL ROMs for all of these games. We're going to be using the official Dolphin emulator, so the second one I had you download, and not MMJR for all of these games. So I'll let you know where MMJR comes into play. There's some that need OpenGL instead of Vulkan, or other things like that. As you can see, Animal Crossing runs really well. This would be a game that would run perfectly good on this device, and I don't see any issues in anything that I've gone through. And now let's look at Baten Kaitos, and this one runs okay. Now remember, we're using a PAL ROM, and this one doesn't get to 50 frames or 50 hertz. It caps out at 25. If you were doing a USA ROM or NTSC, you'd be at 30 frames, so just keep that in mind. 25 is the cap for this game. And this game has some dips and things like that throughout, so it's not exactly the perfect way to play it in any stretch of the imagination. You could probably get away with some hacks here. Maybe using the other emulator might work better, or changing the emulated clock speed, which is usually the next part that you'd want to change for any tweaks and things like that. And now we jump into F-Zero, and this runs fine. I mean, it's not running at full speed by any stretch of the imagination, but you can get away with playing some of it here. And like I said before, if you make some tweaks, it could be playable. I don't know. For me, I would prefer this being completely playable rather than having this kind of substandard performance like this. And maybe we'll get there as Dolphin gets more updates and works better with lower end hardware like this. If we jump into Fire Emblem, this actually plays pretty well. I wouldn't have an issue playing something like this. Again, it's a strategy RPG, so you're not really worried about performance too much, as long as it doesn't take you out of the experience. And for this one, the audio was fine. There wasn't a lot of dips or heavy dips, so you could actually play this game pretty well on this device. Kirby's Air Ride is one that actually plays pretty well as well. I, again, still don't know how to play this game. So for me, if you see that and me not knowing what to do, that's a me thing. Otherwise, it runs fairly well. It's pretty much above 45 frames per second for most of the game. And so it's not considered an issue, in my opinion, that you could play this. You would do well playing this game on this device and wouldn't have an issue, in my opinion. For Luigi's Mansion, this one isn't playing that well. There's a lot of heavy dips, single frame rate, just multiple issues here, and so I'm not sure why this game specifically isn't running well. Might have to do with some settings, but for me it wasn't something that I'd consider playable on this device. Moving into Mario Golf, and yeah, this is one that you could definitely play. Any frame drops or issues or anything like that never really occurs while you're actually trying to hit the ball. It's all afterwards. So as long as you don't mind that, you could actually have a good time here. Moving on to Mario Kart Double Dash, and this plays pretty well. You could probably get it a little bit quicker by adjusting some settings, like I said before, but for me this was good enough, I think. Mario Tennis is another one that plays pretty well. I didn't have many issues here, and you could see that I went on a little bit of a tear against Luigi, but either way, this is a good way to play this game as well. So there's a lot of games on here that are actually playable with GameCube. Jumping into Mario Smash Football, and this doesn't play great. You can tell it seems like it's smooth enough, but I had just enough issues with it that I wasn't really happy with how it played. There was enough frame drops and frame dips that it wasn't exactly a very smooth experience, and so it wasn't that great, especially for kind of an action-focused game like this is. I'm not sure what was going on with Metroid, but I wasn't able to use the right stick to actually move up and down. And so you'll see that I actually used the lock on to get most of my shooting done and all that. But otherwise, I think if you can figure that out, this game runs pretty well, at least from the tutorial section. Paper Mario Thousand Year Door is one that I've gotten to play on other devices that are lower end hardware than this, but it was crashing quite a bit on this. Now, I've had this issue with different emulators in the past, even MMJR crashes too, so it just seems to be part of the game. But if you want to swap between emulators every time it crashes and see if you can get past that point and all that fun stuff, then you could definitely have a good time here. But for me, I don't think I would play it on this device. Pikmin 2 is another one that I wouldn't play on this device. It has a lot of frame drops and just dips, and it didn't really make it that great of an experience, especially if there's a lot of Pikmin on the screen or you're calling them back. It slows down quite a bit, so not exactly a great experience here. And now for Pokemon, this is one that has some dips as well, and so it skips and dips all over the place. I don't know if it's a great experience here. Like I said before with some other titles, depends on your patience and how much effort you want to put into getting these running, as opposed to just playing them in a better spot on a different device. Same thing here with the other Pokemon, and It's sort of the same as the other one, so the same things that I said for the other applies for this. A lot of frame dips and things like that, and not exactly a great experience. Plus, the aspect ratio kept changing for some reason. I'm not sure why. It was just adjusting here and there, as you can see. So just some weird glitches going on with this game. For Prince of Persia, it's a same thing here. It's not exactly a great experience. There was a number of frame dips and a lot of chugging, and not exactly a game that I would consider playable on this device. Skies of Arcadia Legends is a weird one. It's something that you could probably get away with given that it's turn-based, but there was just enough jank and dips and things of that nature that I wouldn't consider it completely playable on this device, but if you really wanted to, I think you could get it working. On the other hand, Soul Calibur II runs really well. Not a lot of issues here at all, and no frame dips or skips or anything of that nature that I found. Super Mario Sunshine is one that we needed to use MMJR for, and so I skipped over to that emulator and ended up booting it up. It ended up working pretty well. Back to the Dolphin official emulator, and Super Monkey Ball runs super great. There isn't any issues here that I saw. Super Smash Bros. Melee runs great as well. There's slight dips here and there, not enough that I'd consider it unplayable, but it plays pretty well. So if you can get around that, maybe just changing the clock speed a little bit might help it here, but otherwise, as you can see, it runs super well on this device. Tales of Symphonia is a weird one. During actual battle, it's not an issue, and you can see that it's fully playable here and not much of a concern with any frame dips or frame drops. But as soon as you get into the open world, that's where all the frame drops and issues happen. So if you can get over the overworld kind of issues, I guess, then you should be able to have a good experience here. Legend of Zelda Wind Waker is also another one that's a weird one. There are frame dips here and there, but for the most part it seems to play pretty well. Once I get inside to the house, that's where the frame dips and most of those issues happen. So I'm not sure if this would be completely playable as you get more into the later game, but it is something that's pretty close and we might get there pretty soon. The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess is one that we need to change to OpenGL. So showing it here, you just back into the main screen and you want to go and push and hold on the actual game, and then you can change the game settings from here, and that'll only apply to this specific game. So if we change it to OpenGL and then boot it back up, this game runs pretty well. It's mostly at that 30 frames per second mark, which is the cap for this game. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4 is another one that we have to change the settings for. So if you just jump right in and we change it to OpenGL, it'll get rid of that weird black box that shows up under Tony, and you'll be able to play this just fine. Now, it's not exactly a great experience here. There's just enough jank and dips and not a great frame rate that I wouldn't consider it completely playable, but it is working, so it is something that you could play if you have that patience. If we round it off here with Viewtiful Joe, no matter what I changed for OpenGL or Vulkan, it didn't run well on the official Dolphin emulator. So I swapped to MMJR and it ran perfectly fine. I think as some closing thoughts here, I would probably stick with MMJR for most of the games on this device. So probably go the opposite of what I did in this video and just use MMJR until you run into any issues. It's a better emulator for lower end devices and seemed to run games a lot better than the official emulator did for me. But as a whole, GameCube Emulation is a bit of a mixed bag on this device. I'm not sure I would consider it completely playable, but there's just enough games here that you can get running at a completely playable state that I would consider it to be an option or a bonus console for this device, and something that if you already have it, I would definitely look at. But if you want to buy this device, I wouldn't grab the G Cloud just for GameCube emulation. And that's going to be it for this one. I hope you enjoyed the video. Check out my other videos on other retro handhelds and other devices. And make sure that you like and sub to this video to help the channel grow. And hope you all have a good one.